What if I told you that the paper money in your wallet, the dollars, the rupees, the euros, has no real power? That every empire, every nation, every financial system that relied solely on its currency eventually failed. But one thing always survived. One thing that governments, banks, and even kings could not destroy. Gold. For thousands of years, when money faltered, gold did not. And yet, almost no one understands why. Today, we'll unravel the hidden story of how gold outlasts every financial collapse, every hyperinflation, and every banking crisis, and what it means for you today. Before we dive into the story, let's set the stage. The history of money is a history of trust. For centuries, coins were minted from silver, bronze, or gold itself. People believed in these coins not just because they had value stamped on them, but because the metal had intrinsic worth. Governments, merchants, and emperors relied on this trust to power trade, finance wars, and build economies. But as soon as rulers started printing paper money backed by nothing but faith, cracks began to appear. Whole empires have risen and crumbled because their currency became worthless. From the Roman Empire to the Weimar Republic, from hyperinflated Zimbabwe to the banking collapses of the 21st century, there's one repeating pattern. When money fails, gold does not. And what's fascinating is how history hides the details that could have warned people ahead of time. The same mistakes are repeated over and over, century after century. The story begins thousands of years ago. Gold has been coveted for at least 5,000 years. The first civilizations, Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, valued gold not just for its beauty, but for its scarcity, durability, and resistance to decay. Unlike crops, animals, or even silver, gold could not be produced overnight, stolen easily, or devalued by rulers printing more of it. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and gold remained the ultimate measure of wealth. Kings hoarded it to fund wars. Merchants hoarded it to secure trade. Even commoners recognized its power as a portable, universally recognized store of value. By the 19th century, the gold standard became the backbone of global finance. Currencies were pegged to gold, and central banks held it to guarantee the value of paper money. It seemed unbreakable until humans began to test the limits. The gold standard brought stability to the 19th and early 20th centuries. Countries like Britain, France, and the United States built empires that depended on the promise that every note could be exchanged for gold. Wars were financed, railroads were built, and global trade expanded. Gold represented both power and trust, but this stability was fragile. Nations couldn't print their way out of financial trouble anymore. They were tethered to the amount of gold they held. When crises hit like wars or natural disasters, countries faced impossible choices: deplete their gold reserves, abandon the standard, or watch their economies grind to a halt. Then came the 20th century, and with it, unprecedented financial stress. World War I forced governments to spend beyond their means. Paper money flooded economies as gold reserves were hoarded or exported to pay for war. Trust in currency faltered. By the 1920s, countries struggled to maintain the gold standard. Some abandoned it entirely. The ultimate test came in the 1930s with the Great Depression. Banks failed, savings evaporated, and economies collapsed. Governments tried to fix the system by devaluing currencies or creating new forms of credit. But the lesson was brutal. Money without a tangible anchor can vanish overnight. And yet, gold retained its value. People who owned it survived far better than those who relied solely on paper wealth. Its scarcity and universality made it a lifeboat in stormy financial seas. After the Depression, countries experimented with fiat currency, money backed by faith, not gold. The post-World War II era brought the Bretton Woods system, where the US dollar was pegged to gold, and other currencies pegged to the dollar. For a time, the world seemed safe again. But by the 1970s, even this fragile system collapsed. President Nixon ended the dollar's gold convertibility in 1971, what became known as the Nixon Shock. Suddenly, all major currencies became purely fiat. Governments could print as much as they liked. And predictably, over time, inflation, financial bubbles, and debt crises became inevitable. Yet through every collapse, gold retained its value, often increasing dramatically when paper money faltered. Example, in the 1970s, the US dollar lost nearly 50% of its purchasing power in a decade, while gold rose from $35 per ounce to over $800 per ounce. Example, during hyperinflation in Zimbabwe 2007 to 2009, local currency became worthless overnight, but gold remained a universal store of value. The pattern is unmistakable. Whenever money fails, gold wins. Governments have tried repeatedly to fix money without returning to gold. Inflation targeting, printing more currency, hoping wages keep up. Digital money, Bitcoin, central bank digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, debt forgiveness programs, temporary relief but long-term instability persists. Yet none of these solutions address the core problem. Fiat money is based on trust, not scarcity. When trust erodes, collapse follows. Gold, by contrast, does not rely on promises. It cannot be printed, hacked, or arbitrarily devalued. Even today, when economies face crises like the 2008 global financial crash, or the recent spikes in inflation, in multiple countries gold quietly rises while paper currencies wobble. Let's connect the past to today. Data: the US dollar has lost roughly 98% of its value since 1913, while gold has increased over 5,000%. Global debt: total global debt recently surpassed $300 trillion, an all-time high. Central banks are holding record gold reserves, signaling they know fiat alone is fragile. And yet, ordinary people often ignore the lesson. They keep savings in cash, stocks, or digital currencies alone. History tells us that when a crisis hits, whether hyperinflation, banking collapse, or currency devaluation, those holding gold historically survive far better. Even subtle patterns repeat. Money printing gives inflation, gives panic, gives gold rush. Debt crises gives trust, collapse gives gold prices soar. Political instability gives currency falls, gives gold holds steady. It's not just coincidence. It's a pattern embedded in centuries of financial history. So what can we learn from this relentless pattern? Gold is timeless wealth. Unlike paper money, it cannot be devalued by human error or overprinting. Fiat currencies are fragile. Trust and stability are temporary. Crises are inevitable. History repeats itself. Every empire, every country, every financial system that ignores the principles of scarcity eventually pays the price. The warning is simple. If you place all your trust in money alone, history shows you are vulnerable. Every financial collapse may look different on the surface, but the underlying pattern is identical. Gold is not a get-rich-quick scheme, it's a hedge, a lifeboat, a silent witness to centuries of financial failure. Will you ignore the lesson, or learn from it before the next crisis? Call to action. If this story shocked you or made you rethink your financial safety, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of money, power, and hidden economic truths. Comment below, would you rely on gold if the system collapsed tomorrow? I'll read every response and feature some in the next video.